Hi, everybody. I wanted to talk about forgiveness this morning. I know Daniel Mackler has talked about it, and I liked his take on it. I largely agree with it. Like, he points out that forgiveness, well, his point is that people kind of jump the gun by forgiving too soon. I think that was the gist, and I agree with that. There's this idea of spiritual bypassing, right? Where you bypass a real need that you can do something in the world to improve your life, to improve everyone's life, but you just bypass it by saying, all is God or whatever, or it's God's will. Well, you could do the same thing with forgiveness. You can jump the gun and bypass healing by forgiving, by having some ritual of forgiveness. So I forgave that person. I forgive them. I know somebody whose sister was hassled by him in their childhood, and he would want to talk about it, and that sister would say, I forgive you. Sorry for yelling. I forgive you. She'd yell. It's like, serenity now, right? Clearly, you haven't forgiven. If you're saying it like that, you haven't forgiven. But she bypassed it. And to me, the real forgiveness is just seeing the whole system, seeing the whole enchilada, seeing that, like, for example, being bullied myself. Like, I was bullied. Have I forgiven my abusers? Yeah, but I haven't gone out and wanted to talk to them and say, oh, by the way, I forgive you. No, first of all, that is totally ill-advised. The only time I would say that it's ever worthy to tell an abuser that you forgive them is if they ask for forgiveness. Then you could say, oh, I forgive you. Don't worry about it. That's if you have, in fact, forgiven them. Otherwise, just keep it to yourself, as far as I'm concerned. That's what I do. I just keep it to myself. I have yet to run across one of my abusers since this healing journey has largely or mostly abated and completed. So, like, in the case of, like, let's say, a junior high bully, I remember a guy would push me. I'm trans, so I was in guy mode back then. He'd push me up against the gym wall and just repeatedly punch me on the stomach. He had something, I don't know, I reminded him of some other person who maybe abused him, and he just had to he was paying it forward. That's what bullying is. It's not paying back, it's paying forward. It's generational trauma and interpersonal trauma. And so he was doing that to me, and I don't feel like hostility towards the guy. It's just, I see that this is a hurt person who was hurting people, and I then in turn hurt other people. And it's just this wave of trauma that is running through society and human culture. And just seeing it for what it is. One of the things, though, about the forgiveness bypassing is that anger is a useful thing. One of my postulates in my life, in my seeking, was that if it exists for a reason, and clearly anger is two things. It's hurt plus blame. So, like an example, if you sit down and something jabs you in the back, you're like, what? And then you look for what's causing that. It's just a natural movement. You hurt, it hurts, something's jabbing you in the back, you look, that's the blame. What's causing that? And this is an inanimate object, I'm thinking of, like a pine cone or something. But it's the same thing with human relations. Who or what is causing this? And so you go, in the moment, you try to stop the injustice, if there is indeed injustice, and then you try to do your best to stop it. But if it's happened, like, in junior high, you look at it more like, grieving is the important thing. Go from the anger, the blame, you kind of, there's no point at this point. Then you feel the hurt, and you face it by grieving, acknowledging that there's nothing to be done. It's all water under the bridge at this point. And so you just feel that powerlessness you felt, and you grieve that powerlessness, that feeling of powerlessness and being violated. You grieve it, you acknowledge it. And then as far as blame, there's still another movement you could do. Instead of blaming that guy for bullying me, which he was to blame for bullying me, but I can take it even further. I can blame what was causing that trauma in him. And of course it would be whoever bullied him, or his parents or siblings or whatever. But I can even take it even further. I could say, blame the trauma itself, passing through the culture. And that is, like, as far as I'm concerned, it's like the 10,000 foot view over my life. You blame the culture. It's this movement. And so the solution, what's to be done about it, is to try to heal that as much as possible. And how do we do that? How do we heal that trauma, that wave that is passing through the culture? How we do it is by doing it ourselves, healing ourselves, and to the best of our ability, being like a cul-de-sac to any kind of somebody's an asshole to you. You can see it and contextualize it, and you don't react to it like you would have normally. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't ignite your childhood trauma and activate that. So then you act in a disproportionate way against that person who probably, once you're an adult, the slights get pretty small, unless you're in like a narcissistic relationship. But I'm talking about like in a line or something, or out here in the park. So yeah, I mean, forgiveness, there's a lot of depth to be had to explore that. But it's not, some packaged, check the box forgiveness, because if you do check the box forgiveness, you're not really forgiving. You're aping forgiveness. You're cosplaying forgiveness. It's a kayfabe. A lot of it is, I believe in some quarters, some circles, it's virtue signaling. I know the right talks about virtue signaling a lot, but there's a lot of virtue signaling in publicly forgiving people and all that, or just telling yourself that, oh, I forgive them. I'm that kind of a person, I forgive. And now there are times when public forgiveness is actually, because of the culture, it's called for. It totally makes sense. Like when a white supremacist barges into a black church and guns down a bunch of children, often you hear people from neighboring and even that same church immediately forgiving the gunman. And that makes total sense from like a hostage situation, because they're telling this culture of white supremacy in that area, because it's clearly in there in that wider culture. Not everybody is, but there is a lot. They're telling that culture, look, we forgive you. We're not coiled up in anger, ready to strike and get even and pay it forward to your children or other white children or whatever. So it makes sense that they do that. I mean, that makes perfect sense. But as a, personally speaking, I definitely don't rush to forgive. I want to understand what forgiveness is. I think I got a pretty good handle on it. Okay, I'm here. Talk to you later.